All right, guys, so breaking down the NFL DFS slate for Monday Night Football. It is a little different. We got a 2-game slate, so let's cover it. Now, as always, I do want to start out with the slate preview, with the game previews. Both games are pretty much expected to go the same way. We see that the Saints are favored by 3 points, and we see that the Browns are going to be favored by 2 points. Basically the same over and under. I mean, it's different, but based off of what the game is expected to do, kind of the same stuff there. The biggest news that we are waiting on for the Panthers is going to be, is DJ Chark going to be active or not? Because that could change maybe who we're ending up on. For example purposes, we see Terrence Marshall ended up with almost 90% of the snaps, as well as Jonathan Mingo and Adam Thielen. DJ Chark was basically their receiver number 1 during the preseason. Bryce Young liked to favor him. And so I'm wondering which player would lose the snaps. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe we just see it be like 65% across the board or so. It's tough to say. So might be risk reward based value there. And then we look at the Saints. Really the biggest news that we're waiting on is going to be Keandre Miller. That could change. Maybe the snap counts for Jamal Williams a little bit. He played in about 75% of the snaps, as well as Jawan Johnson. The one interesting thing worth noting is that Shaheed was someone that, like, if you're watching the film, really stood out, and he only played about 53% of the snaps. I would have guessed it would have been more than that. And then looking at the Browns versus Steelers injury news, it's very unfortunate. 2 of the pretty good receivers in the league, between Amari Cooper and Deontay Johnson, are both out in this game. You know, those 2 guys that can really create separation and really create some easy throws for the quarterbacks, they are both out. And so I personally think with that, we might want to be looking more at the defenses in this game. And I say that with some hesitation because obviously the Panthers and Saints, well, the Saints are going to be going up against the Panthers who have a rookie quarterback. Tough to say exactly. Obviously the Steelers didn't look good as well. But let's just look at the snap counts. Who is most likely to replace both of those players? So for the Browns, I'm going to be honest, I really do not have a good indication of who it's going to be because I don't know exactly if we're going to see the roles for DPJ and Elijah Moore really change. I would say we might just see these 3 receivers right here end up basically having the snap share that they did last week, maybe a little bit more, and just kind of filling in for Cooper that way. I like the way that they used Elijah Moore last week, and they probably did too. They probably could have got him the ball a little bit more, and maybe he's a little bit more of a focus. DPJ did what you would expect him to do, and so I don't know if like those 2 players really get an uptick at all. I was shocked that David Njoku played 73% of the snaps, and I was also a little bit shocked that Jerome Ford played 40% of the snaps, especially given the fact that Nick Chubb only played 50 or so, 48, because Nick Chubb had 22 opportunities in this game. When you're watching the film, you didn't notice that. You didn't notice the limited workload. But for DFS purposes, I would say Marquise Goodwin might be the one we're looking at. Maybe Tillman steps up though. Like it does feel like a guessing game there, but we are going to probably have some good value. And then for the Steelers here, just looking at their snap counts, we did see Allen Robinson and George Pickens play the same amount of snaps, 88.9. We see Deontay Johnson only playing 42 because he got injured. And we saw Calvin Austin end up getting 55. And personally, I think that Calvin Austin is going to be much more of a Deontay Johnson replacement than is George Pickens. Now, guys, this isn't much here, but I put this on my Twitter. Make sure to give that a follow if you haven't. I just like the footwork and I like the body balance mostly for Calvin Austin. It's most similar to that of Deontay Johnson. So I think he's going to be the one that's going to be most likely to fill in for Deontay Johnson. You know, he creates 2 extra yards there. Not much, but enough. This play, there's nothing much to it, but it just shows like he's pretty wide open for this. It just shows a good vision for him, like a good presence for him on the field of where to stop a route to be open. Like there's not a defender within 3 yards of him. Good play design, but also I think Calvin Austin was part of the reason as to why. And for what it's worth, guys, I really thought that Allen Robinson, he looked like a veteran. Like, you know, when a veteran receiver, I should say, when they're not who they once were, but they can still do some things for you. That was Allen Robinson. It's kind of what LBJ is doing right now. It's kind of what Jarvis Landry was doing for the Browns a while back. But let's look at this from a DFS standpoint. So looking at the New Orleans Saints, quarterback wise, Derek Carr, when I was looking at the props earlier, he was actually favored to get under 1.5 touchdowns. And so given that information and given how the game looks, I might be avoiding him. But as a whole, like we're not really getting that many good plays. I would say Watson's going to be the most intriguing just because we do have that rushing upside from him. 5 carries last week, 45 yards and a touchdown. I think we're going to see more of that. And so he's probably going to be the quarterback that I want to roll with the most. And we'll just do it like this, guys, position by position. Apologies. Looking at the running back position, I do think we want to be trying to pay up for Nick Chubb, but already I don't like going with Watson and Chubb. A lot of people might reference that he only played in 48% of the snaps, and that might be a reason for caution, and it very well could be. We saw with Derrick Henry, he just had a really good game after basically having the exact same thing happen to him, where when you were watching the film, it didn't seem like he had his snaps limited because the workload was still there. We saw it with Nick Chubb last week, and guys, last week he ended up with 19.7 DraftKings points while not scoring a touchdown. It's gonna be very difficult for him to do again. And then we also had the poor man's version of Nick Chubb, Najee Harris. Is that a good comp for him? I don't really think so. But Najee Harris, he's one of a kind, I guess, is my point there. Not being that involved in the offense, I will say they did actually start to get some things going when he was on the field. But man, it looks garbage. It was bad. They need to have a better game here. I don't want to draw too many conclusions from last week from him, but I didn't like it. And that's the biggest issue that we're getting in all these, is that everyone but Jamal Williams, and I'll touch on Jamal Williams, was in some sort of a split backfield, okay? Jamal Williams is going to be the easy play. My worry is that he's going to be too chalky. Like, he could be 70% this slate. I'm hoping that he's not, but he probably should be going against the Carolina Panthers. That's going to be a good matchup. Now, they did have the best rushing offense in the league. The Green Bay Packers were up on Sunday against the Falcons, yet they knew that the only way that the Falcons were going to beat them is by rushing the football. And guess what? The Falcons were able to rush the football and still win. That's how good they are. They're not going to face another team like that. So the Panthers aren't that bad against stopping the run. I still think that there's a good chance Jamal Williams ends up with 12 or so DraftKings points in this one. And then the last running backs that we're looking at, I would say Miles Sanders is probably my favorite. We look at how involved Nick Chubb was on a limited workload. Kind of think we're going to see the same thing out of Miles Sanders. I love the work that he had in the passing game, 6 targets. We'll take 6 DraftKings points there, and then whatever he gets on the ground, we'll take that as well. So I do like that price tag. Feels like more of a safer approach to go with 3 running backs on the slate. We'll say Jerome Ford going to be intriguing. He is someone that is a talent. He ended up with 15 carries in that game. And that was a game that was very difficult to pass in, and maybe that's why he got some work. But guys, if he gets another 15 carries or so, or let's say 15 opportunities or so, he's going to score more than 2.6 points. He'd probably score closer to 7. So certainly an interesting click at that price tag. Now looking at the receivers, this is the most difficult part I would say on the slate. I do think Elijah Moore is going to be a little bit more involved in this game. I mean, he did have 7 targets, and they did try to get him involved in the rushing game. And I thought he looked better than he did with the Jets. I don't know what it was with the Jets. Maybe he was just unmotivated. Honestly, that could be a thing. He just did not look good. He really didn't. He looked quicker in week 1. So at that price, I like it. I like that play a lot. We look at someone like Michael Thomas. He is someone that's projected to get over 4.5 receptions. I feel like this is going to be a stat line again, like very limited. Chris Olave, obviously a big play guy. He really did not do anything for most of the game, and then did it all at once, it seemed like. And they should be feeding the ball like that. 10 targets there. Once again, we don't exactly know that the Panthers are a good or bad rush or pass defense. Like, we don't know that yet. So I think I'd be fine still paying up for Chris Olave. And then from there, it just becomes a big old question mark. I would say Calvin Austin's certainly someone I'm looking at that price. Just plug and play it. And really, I think we have to plug and play 2 of these value-based receivers, whether it's Terrence Marshall, whether it's DPJ. I'm probably going to go with him the most. I just feel like his production is going to be a little bit higher now. A lot of people are going to be flocking to George Pickens. I'm worried about that. I'm worried about his ownership. Should be a safe play, though. Not exactly someone I'm going out of my way to play, but at the same time, more of a shoulder shrug play. Like, if I end up on him, I'm fine with it. I don't need to get too mad about it. For Showdown purposes, I think Marquise Goodwin, who almost connected on a couple of deep passes, he might be someone you're looking at Showdown-wise. And I'll touch on that in just a second here as well. Tight end-wise, Pat Freiermuth is going to be chalk. I would actually say David Njoku would be a better option than him, but the best option to me is Juwan Johnson. He was as involved as I thought he would be. Last week, 5 targets, ended up with 6 points, played in 75% of the snaps. Just play him instead of the other 2. You get a little bit of salary savings. I don't think as many people are going to be on him. Guys, this is like the only time I'll think about paying up at defense, okay? Because more times than not, it's going to cost you elsewhere. I use this as an example on a tweet where someone was complaining that the Raiders defense went -2. 1, we dominated the main slate. Why are we complaining about that? The process was right. But 2, it was literally like, I didn't like Josh Kelly. I felt like he was a better fade than he was like an actual player you want to be overweight on. And so you could have went with one of my core plays, which was James Conner, a little bit of Rashad White as well. But James Conner, for this example, like the salary that you saved by going with the Raiders defense led you to more points combined by doing that. And also, you just don't have to worry about it. That being said, like, look at this. Like, is that 6-point difference for almost $1,000 going to be that big of a difference? I don't know. We'll see. Like, lineup wise, we still get Deshaun Watson. So sure, if we want to pay up for, no, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm fine with that. Whatever. That works for me. So kind of a weird build. Let's talk about the showdown stuff real quick as well. All right. So I'm not going to try to take as long on this section because I already covered it a decent amount. I don't mind Jamal Williams in the captain spot. I do think the Carolina Panthers defense, although I don't think they're as bad as what they showed, that is going to be the strength of the matchups. Miles Sanders, I still want to go with. I still want to go with Chris Olave. And then from there, where are we going? I feel like Shaheed's actually a little bit too priced up on the slate. I actually like Juwan Johnson at that price tag a decent amount. Chuba Hubbard looked pretty good for his limited snaps. Like, if you are playing Miles Sanders, it almost make more sense to play Chuba Hubbard at his price tag, that $3,000 price discount for someone that had very similar production. I know that the workload wasn't as there, but that's kind of how it goes with the backups, is that they typically just get a little bit easier of sledding sometimes. And then look at this, guys. Like, they're punting as well with their pricing. Like, they don't know which one it's going to be. Like Mingo, Marshall, they have no clue. That's what that pricing is telling us. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know either. Like, I thought Mingo was a very intriguing product coming out of college. He had 5 targets in that game. Marshall got 6 targets in that game, and he was someone that they liked a lot last year. Different coaching staff, but still, we definitely want to be looking for them for value. It's just kind of a shoulder shrug to me. I don't really care which one it is. And like, the price difference between them and Thielen is just kind of crazy to me. Derek Carr, could we play? Maybe. 4.2 left over. Like, this is just a weird game in terms of paying up. Like, we could easily fit Chris Olave in the captain spot without a sweat. It's pretty easy to do, and we still have a lot of salary left over. Let's say you wanted to go Miles Sanders instead. Let's do that. Obviously, we're not going Chris Olave. We're going back to Jamal Williams. Don't have to force in Derek Carr then. Could easily go with Michael Thomas. And then we're just fitting in 2 of the Carolina deep, or we're fitting in just one of the Carolina like deep dive values, whether it's Mingo or Terrence Marshall. Like, I prefer Marshall just because he's cheaper, but it's definitely more of a shoulder shrug there, guys. And then just real quickly looking at the Steelers versus Cleveland game. And I should have mentioned Panthers D certainly in play. The kickers are certainly in play as well. To me, I see them more as, if I end up on them, I'm fine with it. Saints D, I do prefer a decent amount. Like, if you're closing out your builds and you have that salary left over, by all means do that for both games. Obviously, Deshaun Watson and Kenny Pickett are going to be without their top receiver. Cleveland's defense is legit as well. That could make it a tough game for Kenny Pickett. Let's look at this, though. Flex-wise, Nick Chubb is highly priced up, as he should be, because while we do have some good value on this game as well. I think I would prefer Deshaun Watson in my captain spot just because of the rushing upside, and I'm probably going Nick Chubb. From there, it really is a toss-up. I will say Austin at that price tag. It is it's weirder that's higher priced on this slate than it is the full slate or the 2-game slate. I still think he's at a good price tag. I don't know. I'm kind of gung-ho about him. Could be wrong. Don't get me wrong. But I like it. I like the talent that's there. I'm betting on the talent. Like, I'd rather play him than Allen Robinson at the, with their price differences. DPJ is a little bit higher price than I would have thought he would have been. And then, yeah, I really don't know what happened here. This is just a head scratcher. We've had some kind of easy to see values thus far on these main slates for showdowns, and this is one of them. 40% of the snaps did not get a receptions, but he could touch the ball 10 times, and at $400, that's just, you got to play that, because that just opens up a lot elsewhere. And then you could really play whoever the heck you want. Do you think it's going to be Najee Harris that has a good game? Sure. Play him. Do you want to play Nick Chubb in the captain spot? Sure. The issue that we're having here is we're going to have salary left over no matter what. It's kind of just a weird slate. If you want to get the Steelers in there, maybe you could do that. Or the Browns D, you could do that as well. Obviously, you just have to game script your lineup based off of that. Like, if we're going Browns D instead, that doesn't even work. I was going to say, if we go Browns D instead of Najee Harris, then we just have way too much salary left over. Wow. Elijah Moore from get to Kenny Pickett, get to Najee Harris. Just a weird slate there. Might not be playing that much in that game. I think it's going to be but that's all for this NFL DFS video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, you know what to do. Give that like and subscribe. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.